a what I would say is a mind-blowing essay from the Rebbe about exactly what we're learning. And what's really mind-blowing about it is that it really touches upon the details of what we're learning and how you can apply it in a practical way on a daily in your daily life, really. What do I mean? So basically, the just to say it in short, the essay of the Rebbe, it emphasized that if you look at the species of the Daled Minim, somehow the Arava species is very different than the others in the sense that the rules about it don't take as much importance as the rules about the other species. What do I mean not important? They're all important. But what I mean that they're not important is that they don't obligate the Arava to be specifically this Arava fits the category. No, as long as it's from the family of the Arava, that's good. That's the law with Aravis. It has to be from the right family. The other species, they have to actually be the right thing. They have to fit all the criteria. The Arava doesn't have to fit the criteria. What do I mean? What specifically do I mean? The Arava is from it's called Arvei Nachal. Even if it's not, but even if it's not Nachal, it's kosher. Even if it's not growing by the water. So what does that mean to us? So it's really a mind-blowing essay of the Rebbe that what it means to us is that there's people who are missing mitzvahs and they're missing Torah, and they're not growing up by the stream. They don't grow by the stream. The Arava symbolizes the people that don't have Torah, don't have mitzvahs. And that means that they're not growing by the stream. And that's what we're uniting. That's who we're uniting with. We're uniting with those type of people. The Daled Minim is bringing all of them together, even those that are far from Yiddishkeit. That's what it symbolizes, and that they're not growing by the stream; they're growing far out. It's almost like what you call a tinoik shenishpa, a child that was kidnapped, and he grew up among the goyim. That's what the Arava is. It's not growing by the stream, and that's exactly who we're trying to get. So why are we even joining those people? Because they're from the right species. Because they're the children of Avram, Yitzchok, and Yaakov. That's why they're included. So in other words, it's not about themselves that they have any great quality, but it's about the fact that they're from the right species. That's good enough. We have to unite with them. It's really a mind-blowing concept that why the Arava that symbolizes the Jew that doesn't have anything, by the Arava, that the rules, it's all about being from the right species, but it's not about that exact entity, that exact stem doesn't have to be right. It didn't grow by the stream, but it's from the right species. That's good enough because it's symbolizing the Jew that didn't grow up in the yeshiva. It symbolizes the Jew that grew up outside of the stream, but he's still from the right species, from Avram, Yitzchok, and Yaakov. He also we have to unite with. And the Rebbe takes it even a step further. He says not just that we include him, but the other species, it's all about what they reveal. The Torah, Maisim Tovim, good deeds, and the one that has both, the Esra, the Arava. When you join with him, when you hang out with him, when you invite him, don't make any rules, preconditions. However he is, you got to unite with him the way he is. It's not about his revealed. It's not about his you want him to do this mitzvah before you want him to do that. No. Just unite with him. He's a Arava that comes from Avram, Yitzchok, and Yaakov. That's all you need to. That's all it is. That's all that's involved. Invite him, connect with him. Is an inyan to connect with him. We got to join together the way he is in his essence. That he's what you call the essential Jew. He's not the revealed Jew. He doesn't have anything that reveals that he's a Jew, but he's the essence of a Jew, and you have to bring him with love, and that's the concept. If you bring him with love, ultimately you'll keep the Torah, but it's not about his revealed self. And when you makarev him, when you bring him closer, when you get friendly with him, there's no rules. Just out of love. It's really a powerful idea that when you unite him, you're uniting the arava. The arava goes together with the esrog. So you feel that you're an esrog, get friendly with the arava, unite together. So it's really a powerful message. Now the Rebbe takes it a step further. He says that there's really an argument that could be lulav also falls into the same category, because lulav, what you have with lulav is that there is a rule with lulav that doesn't necessarily mean that the lulav has to be the perfect lulav. It could be from the species that follows the criteria. What is that rule with lulav? So there's two opinions, but there is an opinion that lulav needs to be a branch that is from a tree that gives fruit, dates, that actually gives dates. There is such an opinion. And there's another opinion that says, no, it doesn't. That tree doesn't have to give dates. That tree doesn't have to give dates. It's a date palm that, the date palm, it will give fruits, maybe it won't give fruit, but it's a date palm. As long as it's a date palm, it's fine. It's from the species of a date palm. This tree gives fruits yet? I don't know, but I'm using a date palm. As long as it's a date palm, it's good enough. The other opinion, no, it has to be a kapos tamarim. It has to be a frond of a tree that gives off dates. So if you learn that it has to give off dates, so then what it means symbolizes the Jew that has Torah. He's giving off dates. But if it doesn't have to be that way, and it's just a tree that's from the species, so now we have to have a new insight, because here you have not only the arava that's from the species, but the lulav is also from the right species. It's a lulav from a tree that gives so you see that there's a law by lulav that also doesn't apply to this specific branch, but it's from the right species. That's good enough. So it comes out that the arava and the lulav have something in common relative to the others, that by the hadassim and aravos, there are specific rules. The criteria have to be on this branch itself, has to fit all the criteria. On this esrog itself, it has to fit the criteria. But lulav doesn't. Lulav could be from a branch that's a tree that doesn't actually give the dates, that didn't give dates yet, or is not going to give dates, but it's a date palm. And just like the arava, that didn't grow by the stream, even though it's called Arvei Nachal, didn't grow by the stream. So the vart is that the lulav and the arava they have in common something. What do they have in common? They have in common that neither of them symbolize the person that does good deeds. The arava has no Torah and no good deeds, doesn't have a good smell. And the lulav has good taste, so it has Torah, but it doesn't have any good deeds. So both of them don't have any good deeds. Now, if you think about the mitzvah of lulav, it's all about, this is a mitzvah, an action mitzvah mises, of joining together and fulfilling this mitzvah. Who are we joining with? With entities that don't do mitzvahs? We're joining the Jews that don't do mitzvahs. The lulav is a guy who learns Torah but doesn't, for whatever reason, doesn't really do mitzvahs. And the harava is a guy that doesn't do mitzvahs. So we're joining together these people. It sounds very surprising that you're joining with those that are the opposite of, especially the person who learns Torah. He's really he learns Torah and he doesn't even do mitzvahs. He's like the opposite. He should ruin this joint effort, because you want to mix in someone who's the antithesis of what it means to do a mitzvah, and you're joining him in this mitzvah where he claims he doesn't do mitzvahs. This is the guy that knows Torah, he still doesn't do mitzvahs. That's what the lulav symbolizes. So how could we be joining together? Better leave them out. They're going to ruin your mitzvah. And here we see that it doesn't work that way. Here we see that it's all about their essence, in the fact that that this is a child of Avram, Yitzchok, and Yaakov, that overrides their actions. Their essence overrides their it's more important their essence than their actions. That's what you see there. So it's really a mind-blowing essay. And so the Rebbe says, so what comes out is that this is really surprising, even more the lulav, to join a lulav than the arava. The arava, okay, he doesn't know any better. The lulav guy knows Torah, symbolizes the one who knows Torah, but he doesn't do actions, and still we join together, we connect with him. Everyone should join together and fulfill, and we fulfill the mitzvah that way. So the question is, why is it so? Why is it that we join with the lulav guy, and how could it be that we're going to join with this person who doesn't do mitzvahs? He only learns Torah, and he's going to help us fulfill this mitzvah of this physical mitzvah mises, a mitzvah physical misa. So the thing is that's what the concept of Sukkot is, that even such a person, we have to care about him, we have to unite with him, and we have to include him in order to be able to fulfill the mitzvah. And the Eibishter says that he gets nachas from this. He gets elevated from joining everyone together. So it shows that you shouldn't push aside people. Even such a person that doesn't do mitzvahs, you should still get friendly. You should still try to show him love. And that's the message now. In other words, it doesn't only apply on Sukkot, but it applies even now that it's the Hayrah, that is we have to join even with such a yid that's not in a case of he doesn't know any better, the Arava Jew. Even the Lulav Jew we should join. We should try to care about him, even such a person, and connect with him, and we need him, because without the Lulav you don't do the mitzvah. So you need all of the species. Without him you don't fulfill the mitzvah. So that's the message of the Lulav Jew who also has to join together because of his essence, and we need to care about it. Anyway, I think it's a amazing essay of the Rebbe about this Gemara, specifically about this Gemara and these inyanim, about how you need all four, and you need all four species, but some of them you don't need to have the specific criteria. It's about from the right species, and how it affects, how it means, what it means in avodas ha'adam, in the message of what we take from it. Okay. Anyway, so that's that was the Rebbe's essay that we spoke about yesterday. Now getting back to the Gemara, so I wanted to go through the Tosfos over here a little more in detail, because there's really very important halachas that come out of this Gemara. Of course, these are all very practical laws. A lot of times you learn Gemara, it's not as practical. This is every year comes up, these type of shilas and things. And as I mentioned, yesterday I mentioned that I found a certain shilah that probably is maybe not common for regular people, but if you visit in the nursing homes, it's a very common shilah of how about a person shaking the lulav if they only have one hand that they could use, can they shake the lulav and esrog with that one hand? And do it individually. They'll do the lulav and then the esrog. Would that be allowed? And so this is really based on our Gemara. So let's look at the few pointers here in our Gemara that we've been talking about, that we've been seeing here. So we're on 34b. 34b. So the top Tosfos really is from the previous Gemara, so we're not going to do that. The second Tosfos here, we mentioned that the Tosfos was very bothered with how Rabbi Yishmael darshans that you need 3 aravos if each of those words are being used for another limud. So that was the second Tosfos. The third Tosfos here mentions an interesting thing also about adding on to the types of to the daled minim. Can you add on hadassim and aravos? So the third Tosfos says when it says arve plural, so the Gemara says it means, Rabbi Shmuel says it means two. And arve nachal is shtayim. In anaf eitzava is shloisha, means three. So Tosfos says you can even do more. It's not a problem of Bal Tosef. It's not a problem of adding on to mitzvahs, because when you add on to a mitzvah, that only would be if you add on a different species. In other words, instead of these daled minim, you add on a fifth. You decide instead of just having four, I'm also going to bring a piece of cedar wood. I'm also going to bring a tulip, to the daled minim. Then you're over Bal Tosef. But if you're doing more of the hadassim, more of the aravos, that's acceptable. That's allowed. Now in Shulchan Aruch, it even so that's what Tosfos says. You could add on to the hadassim and you could add on to the aravos. In Shulchan Aruch, it does bring down this concept that about adding on to the hadassim and the aravos. I think it specifically says it by hadassim. So it says. Yeah, what you're saying is that Tosfos mentions even if you need it to be tied, you still fulfill the mitzvah, right? But where is this?
Kama hadassim, the kama aravos.
Yeah.
It's the same Tosfos.
Now I'm looking in the Shulchan Aruch. So Shulchan Aruch. Vav. It must be after. It must be brought after.
Remember that we declare the
Okay, here. So it's in a different chapter. So it says Ein lahem shir l'mayla v'yesh mi shemesh afilu haisav bayrach hadas. That's it. Shir hadas. Wrong one. No, even there it's not. Must be here. Yeah, here. Okay. The person shouldn't take more than one lulav and one esrog, but arav and hadas you could add on as much as you want. Moisif kol mashi yirtzeh. This is our Tosfos. This is where it says you can add on as much as you want. V'yesh misha poisel aniach chanda shoyte belulav noisav ala gimel din avos. And some say that if you have non-kosher hadassim, meaning hadassim that are the wrong species, in other words, it's a hadas that doesn't have three growing in the right place. So then, if some passel that's called the hadas shoita, such a hadas that doesn't have them all. So I guess you can't say that it's the wrong species because it's from the right tree, but it's a hadas shoita. It's an invalid hadas. So some say that it's possible if you add those, even though you have three kosher ones, but you add on non-kosher hadas shoitas. Some say that's possible, and some say it's kosher. And the medaktikim don't add on. Those that are medaktik don't add on to the two aravos and the three hadassim. They don't add on. Now that's what it says, but there is a minhag among many, at least among in Lubavitch is definitely a strong minhag to add on to the hadassim. Different numbers. Supposedly it's a way of beautifying the mitzvah. I believe it also has an element of hiding the aravos. There is a concept that the aravos are not supposed to be visible, that we don't we hide the arava amongst the hadassim, and it must be a kabbalistic idea, something probably connected also to the concept that the arava doesn't have mitzvahs, doesn't have Torah, but we hide it together. Probably some concept like that. Anyway, so there is a minhag to have many extra hadassim. Some people do it. Shulchan Aruch doesn't have a problem with it. This the Shulchan Aruch. This is the Beis Yosef. Yosef Kairei says, "Moisef ba kol mashayirti." You could add as much as you want. The only issue would be if some of them are not kosher. That could be an issue. If it's a hadas shoita, meaning it's a hadas that doesn't have 3 coming out from every joint. Instead, it has like 2 and 1, 2 and 1. That was what the Gemara called a hadas shoita, and the reason that it would be puzzle would be maybe because that could be considered like a min acher, like what Tosfos says. If you have a different species, that would be bal tosef. So that would be the issue if it's not kosher for a certain type of non-kosher. In other words, it's non-kosher because it's called a different species. That would be the problem if you would call it that. But if it grows from this, I mean, if it has a different, if for whatever reason it's just not missing extra leaves and so on, then it wouldn't be a problem. It's the right species, so it wouldn't ruin your lulav. And so that's the concept here that we see in Tosfos, which is brought in Shulchan Aruch, that you could add on. Now, where do they see this? You can't add on to a lulav and an esrog, but you could add on to a ravais and hadassim. So I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up in the Beis Yosef, but I think I'm going to take a look. But I think it has to do with the fact that what's the source that you have 2 or you have 3? It's the concept of the fact that it's plural. In other words, it doesn't spell out how many. With the lulav and esrog, it sort of spells out singular. These are plural, but it doesn't say 3 and it doesn't say 2. So of course you could learn 3 because 3 words, and you learn 2. Arve just means plural. But because it doesn't spell it out a number, in other words, when it says a singular, that's like saying a number. It has to be 1. But when it says plural, the Torah doesn't limit it. The Torah says plural. You have to have, a few. You have to have some. You have to have arve nachal. So how many is arve? Its minimum is 2. It doesn't say that it has to be only 2. And the same thing with the araves. It doesn't say that it has to be 3. It says that it's implied that there's that you have at least 3. In other words, it's not clearly spelled out. When you say singular, it's basically spells out 1. When something's plural, it doesn't spell it out that it has to be that number. Maybe it's just a thought. Why would there be a difference? But anyway, I'm sure I could maybe look it up in the Beis Yosef. It might. Probably explain the source for that. Now, the next Tosfos says that it has to be a lakicha tama. It has to be, and this was the Gemara here, Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer's statement is an interesting statement. He says, maybe you need to tie the esrog with the lulav in the hadassim and arabas, tie it all together, which makes it sound like Rabbi Eliezer holds like Rabbi Yehuda that you're supposed to tie the lulav. And so Rabbi Eliezer says, maybe you should tie the esrog with it. You would think that you have to. He says, no, there's no vav. There's no vav. You don't have to tie the esrog with it. Then he says, and how do you know that they are ma'akiv, one to the other? How do you know that you need to have all 4? How do you know such a thing? Maybe the Bryce is asking this question. Maybe it's not Rabbi Eliezer. It's just the Bryce itself starts off. And it says, how do you know that you need to have all 4? And if you're missing 1, you didn't do the mitzvah. So we learn from lekachtem that if you divide that word into two, lekachtam, lekichatama, it has to be complete. Tam sometimes means complete. Could mean simple, it could mean complete. So we learn from here that lekichatama, that it has to be a complete, like tamim, not a mum, doesn't have a blemish, tam. So the word the word lekachtem is a combination of two words. You should take complete. So we learn from there that what does it mean to be complete? It means that you have to have all four. What does that sound like? You need to have all four. So it could mean that you need to take all four at the same time and shake it and do the waving. You could learn it that way. That's what the Gemara could mean. Or it could mean that if you shake one at a time, but at least you have to do all four. If you're missing one, you lose out. Now, does that one have to be taken together with the others at the same moment? Or you can't miss one. In other words, you have to shake them. They have to be together near each other, and you shake them one at a time. But at least you did all of them. You didn't miss out in any of them. Did they do it? Did you do it all at the same moment? Maybe not. But they're ma'akiv. You need to. They're needed. They're necessary. And if you miss out in one of them, you missed out in the mitzvah. So this is what Tosfos deals with, but he also deals with another problem. What's the law if your esrog is missing a piece? If your esrog is a chaser, it's missing. There's maybe someone took a little bite out of it. Someone took a little cut a little piece for their tea, and took a little piece out of their esrog. So what happens then? Is that a kosher esrog? So the answer is, on the first day of Sukkot, or outside of Israel, possibly in the first 2 days, the law is that it's not going to be kosher. It's called a chaser. Now, what's the reason that chaser, if it's missing, is it puzzle? The reason is because it's not lekicha tama. You're not taking a complete thing. But think about it. What about the other days of Sukkot? The other days of Sukkot, the later days of Sukkot, if you don't have a kosher esrog, you don't have available another better esrog, you can use it. It's missing, but it's kosher. Why is it kosher? Because lekicha tama is the biblical law. And after the first day, you're outside of Israel, the first 2 days, when it's only rabbinic law. And therefore, the rabbis didn't obligate you to have all the details of the biblical laws, which one of them is lekicha tama. It has to be complete. So Tosfos is wondering, okay, that's an interesting law. Let's connect that. Let's now apply that to what we just learned. Why do you need to have all four species at the same time? Or at least own them, have them in front of you. Why do you need to have all the four species and then ultimately shake all of them? Why do you need that? Because lekicha tama, you got to have all of them. Only the first day, only the first 2 days, maybe outside of Israel. The other days, maybe it's good enough to have just 2 of the species, 3 of the species. Good enough. You don't have all of them, no problem. Lekicha tama. If the esrog is missing, it's fine to. If it's okay, it's kosher. The last days of Sukkot. Why? Lekicha tama only applies on the biblical laws at the first day. Afterwards, lekicha tama is not a problem. You're doing the mitzvah. The rabbinic mitzvah is good enough. The rabbinic mitzvah doesn't obligate you to have. It has to be 100% complete. Missing a little piece, it's okay. So the same thing should apply if you're missing one of the species. Lekicha tama? Lekicha tama is only on the biblical law. It's a good question. Tosfos has. So he says, maybe this should work. So he says that the lekicha tama, the reason is applicable also for the esrog. That same reason we use, lekicha tama. And on the second day in Eretz Yisrael, they're not worried about that. In other words, it's kosher even if it's not. But nevertheless, we are careful that you need to have all four. What is it? L'kichatama or no l'kichatama? Are the rabbinic laws obligated to follow this rule of l'kichatama that you need to have a complete taking with all four? Then you should also need on the later days of Sukkot, the rabbinic law should say that you also need to have a full esrog. If the law of l'kichatama applies to the rabbinic laws, then the law of l'kichatama should apply not only on the first day, but on the other days as well about the esrog. It applies that you need all four species on the other days, so let it apply that you need the complete esrog, not a piece of an esrog that's missing a piece. So Taisus says that I answered this previously. And previously, Taisus mentioned this idea that, yeah, the rabbis made the law that you have to shake lulav after the first day in Eretz Yisrael. They made a decree that we should zeichel hamikdash, right? Remember in the Beis Hamikdash, after the Churban, they said we have to have a commemoration that in the Beis Hamikdash they used to shake the lulav every day. So we're gonna now, wherever you are, you should shake the lulav as a commemoration of the Beis Hamikdash. So the thing is, the rabbis made this law. True, the rabbis made this law. They said that when you shake the lulav, but in order to shake the lulav for our mitzvah that we're obligating you, we're only obligating you to do the things that are most important that are intrinsically connected to the mitzvah. So l'kichatama has one element that's intrinsically connected to the mitzvah. What is that? That you need all four species. You can't get away with two, with three. That's not good enough. You need all four. That's intrinsically, that's the essential part of the mitzvah of lulav. Needs to have all four. However, when it comes to the law that the esrog is missing a piece, that's not essential to the law of the Daled Minim. Okay, it's missing a piece. It's okay. In other words, even though it's all learned based on this concept of l'kichatama has to be complete, but there's some elements of completeness that are essential, and there's some elements of completeness that aren't essential to do the mitzvah. And the rabbis, when they made their decree that you have to shake the lulav outside of Israel, after the Beis Hamikdash, when they made their law that even the other days of Sukkot, they have to shake the lulav, they only obligated you to meet the criteria of completion in things that were essential to doing the mitzvah. So this law of that lekachtem shetehei lekichatama. This is on our Gemara 34b, and this is the source that you need to have all four species. Again, it's another topic. We'll soon talk about it. If you could do one after another, you have to do them all at the same moment. But do you really need all four? The answer is yes, you do need all four. Even the other days of Sukkot, even the later days of Sukkot, yes. Even though it's learned from l'kichatama, and there is a law about l'kichatama that we don't apply to the other days of Sukkot, like if a piece of the esrog is missing, we don't apply that to the other laws of Sukkot. But this law we do apply to the other days of Sukkot, even though it's rabbinic. Why? Because this is a law that's essential to the mitzvah of lulav and esrog, that you need the four species. We've got to unite all the Jewish people. But the fact that the esrog is missing a piece, that's not essential to the law. And therefore, when the rabbis instituted this law of shaking the lulav, they didn't include that rule of l'kichatama. Not all rules of l'kichatama did they include. Missing a little piece, it's okay. Okay, so that's the first point of Taisus. Then Taisus says that there's a Gemara in Menachos that talks about this concept of needing all four species. You know, the Gemara and the Gemara there says a strange language. The Gemara says that all the four species are needed, and it says, but this only applies if you don't have them. But if you do have them, then they're not needed. What does that mean? If you have them, they're not needed. If you don't have them, that's a problem. You need to have all four. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean you just have to own them and you don't have to shake all of them, just shake one. As long as you have them, it's good enough, because we know that the mitzvah is to wave is to lift all of the species. So it must mean that you're including all of them. So what does it mean? So the halachas gedolos, which is the sefer Tosfos brings, it says that, you know what it means? That you don't need to lift them all up at the same time. One at a time is good enough, as long as you have them. As long as you either have them in front of you, which is the most common understanding, as long as they're there in front of you, it's good enough. You fulfill the mitzvah even though you didn't shake them all at the same time. As long as you have them in front of you and you shake them one after the other, it's not a problem. It's aimed. That's what the Gemara means there. That when do we need all of them? When do we say that it's ma'akev, that if you didn't have it, you didn't fulfill the mitzvah? When do we say that? That's if you don't have them all in front of you. You just shook two or three of them, you didn't fulfill the mitzvah. But if they are all in front of you, you didn't shake them all at once, no problem. As long as you shake them one after the other, ein ma'akvin. It's not a problem. They don't have to be you don't need them all at the same moment. Yeshla, you have it. It's not ma'akvin. In other words, don't think that you need to shake them all at the same time. The whole concept is that the whole issue of ma'akvin is if you don't own it, that's a problem. You don't have it in front of you. But if you have it there and you shake them one after the other, then it's not a problem. It's not ma'akev if you didn't shake them all at once. So that's the way the Baal Halachas Gedolos learns the message of the Gemara in Menachos is teaching you that. Again, our Gemara just emphasizes that you need all four. It doesn't explain it. The Gemara there adds on this concept of yeshla or ainla, if you have it or you don't have it. So the Baal Halachas Gedolos says, you know what that means? Again, it's a vague terminology in the Gemara there, but so Baal Halachas explains it. He says it means that don't think that it's ein ma'akev. The Gemara there concludes that there is a case where it's ein ma'akev. You don't need it. When don't you need it? You don't need it when you have them there. As long as you have them in front of you and you do one after another, it's good enough. Ein ma'akvin. It's not ma'akev to have it all at once. That's the way he's learning that's the message of that Gemara. Now, he says, in this is based on the fact we hold lulav doesn't need, we hold lulav doesn't need eged, doesn't need to be tied together. And because it doesn't need to be tied together, then it makes sense that you could do one after the other. If you need to tie them together, then you would say that, well, if you need to tie them together, you see that you're tying them together means that you're doing them all at once. That would be reasonable to assume that you would need to shake them all together. And even though the esrog maybe is not part of that bundle, but the fact that that you need to shake all four, and three of them need to be all at once, it would make sense that the fourth one would also need to be together. So if you hold lulav needs to be bound, then you would say you got to shake them all together. That could be the understanding. What you're binding it together, the mitzvah is to shake them all at once. But if you hold that it doesn't need to be bound, then that's the meaning of that Gemara, that it's as long as you have them, yeshla, you have it, you don't need to shake them all at once. That's the way the Baal Halachas Gedolos wants to learn. Tosfos over here says that's a surprising. Davar Temahu, he says, this is a wonder to say such a thing. Since it's all one mitzvah, how could you do one after the other? So Rabbeinu Tam has to learn a new meaning of that Gemara there. So he says that how does he explain it? So the way he explains it over there is that the way he explains it there is that you need all of them. You need all of them together. And the way he learns, you need all of them to be shaken together. But that only applies that you need them only because that it has to be complete. In order for it to be complete, you need to have all of them together. And if you didn't shake them all together, you didn't fulfill the mitzvah. But as long as you do them together, it's yeshla. You had them together, you did them together, then it's okay, even if they're not bundled. So the way he learns the Gemara is it's specifically telling you don't need to bundle them together. The whole concept is you have to do all of them. So we learned that you need ma'akiv, that if you're missing one, it's not good. That applies as long as you did it all together. But even though you didn't bundle it, it's fine. If you have them, you did it all together, but you didn't bundle it, then it's okay. That's the meaning of the Gemara. Again, the Gemara there says, if you did it together, that's the way he's translating it. That if you didn't do it together, that's a problem. But if you did it together, then it's okay, even if it's not bundled. That's the way he's learning the Gemara. So that's the way Rabbeinu Tam holds. And the reason why it's okay is because the rabbis don't learn like Rabbi Yehuda that you need it to be bound, and Rabbi Yehuda learns it needs to be bound. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, you need to bind it, otherwise you don't fulfill the mitzvah. According to the rabbis, it doesn't have to be bound. The mitzvah to bind it, but you don't have to, and therefore it's kosher even if not. Again, so it ends up being a machlekes, and in Shulchan Aruch it says that these four minim. This is the Rabbi Yosef Kairo's Shulchan Aruch, the regular Shulchan Aruch. He says these four minim, ma'akven zeh, if you're missing one, you can't make the bracha on the others, but you will take them lazecher bialma. You will take them for a commemoration. And in Shulchan Aruch it says whether on the first day or whether on the other days. So this is our Tosfos, that even on the other days you can't say, oh, l'kichatama on the other days I don't have to care about. I could say the bracha. No. If your esrog is missing something, yeah, maybe then you could say the bracha. But if you're missing one of the species, even on the other days, you can't say the bracha. You need all four for all the days of Sukkot. Now, if you have all four by you and you took them one at a time, yatsa, you fulfill the mitzvah. So who is the Shulchan Aruch paskening like? Who is he following? Which opinion? Rabbeinu Tam or the Baal Halachas Gedolos? He's following the Baal Halachas Gedolos. And then the Ramah adds in, as long as they're in front of you. So the Ramah adds in that's the meaning, the way the Baal Halachas Gedolos is learning that Gemara there, that they have to be in front of you. They should all be right there. And you take the lulav first, make the bracha on the lulav, and you have in mind the others. And if you spoke in between, then you would need to make a bracha on each of them on their own. So if you have the arava, you would say al natilas arava, if you spoke. But then the Mishnah Berurah brings down that toiv shachach gam ken yachzav yichen kulam biyachad berach al lulav biyachar bracha rosh leihaya bayhada say arava. He brings this case. If you made the bracha on the lulav, afterwards, after the bracha, you saw you didn't have any hadas in there, or ravos, or that they were psulim, or they were upside down. So if you have in your house, if you have a hadas or a rava in your house, that you don't have to interrupt in order to take them, you should take all four together and make the bracha on that min that you're missing, on that species that you're missing. So if you missed the arava, so now you say the bracha al natilas arava, or on the hadas al natilas eitz avos. And if it's if it's the first day, again, we're talking about a case where you spoke in between, so you can't just pull the other thing. You have to say a new bracha. So you would also say a shechiyano if it's the first day. But you don't say another bracha on the lulav because the lulav, you already fulfilled that part of the mitzvah. So you can't say another bracha on the lulav. But now, if they're not in your house, then it's another story. And then you just say the bracha al natilas lulav because they weren't there they weren't next to you, and that's based on this Gemara in Menachos again. So this is a very I can't say it's practical, but this is the halacha. And the reason I guess it is practical is in cases of people who can't hold the lulav and esrog at the same time. So it's brought in Shulchan Aruch that it's fine. Okay, now, so that is that Tosfos. Then comes the next Tosfos, and the next Tosfos is talking about this interesting Gemara. What the Gemara talking about a threat. What type of threat? So it's talking about that Shmuel threatened the people who sold Aravis. He says, "You better ashvu bezavinu." Make the price reasonable to the value. Make it, sell it for its value. Ashvu, calculate the value. Vizavinu and sell it with that price. Don't over hike up the prices of the Aravis, of the Hadassim. Because again, the Hadassim, you need 3. And he says, don't make the prices of the Hadassim so high. Asa means the Hadassim. So he says, Ashru bezavinu. The people who sold Hadassim, he told them, make sure not to make the prices high. Make the value of the Hadassim, sell it for its value. And if not, I am going to tell everyone that they don't need to have proper Hadassim that are unclipped on the top. I'm going to tell everyone that they can even just get away with clipped Hadassim. I'm going to paskin that halacha to everyone. And so it reminds me of a famous Hasidic story where the Hasidim all had to buy these shtreimels for Shabbos. They wear shtreimel. So the one of the Rebbes told the store, he says, if you're going to make the prices higher, I'm going to put that regular black hat on, and no one's going to buy any of these shtreimels from you. So it's exactly the same type of threat he gave the store owners. Like, don't dare make the prices higher for my Hasidim, otherwise I'm going to wear the regular hat, and all the Hasidim are going to follow me, and they're all going to wear the regular hat, and no one's going to buy any shtreimels from you. The shtreimel is that round fur hat that they this high fur whatever. Anyway, okay. So the story here is, so Shmuel warned the salespeople, the Hadassim salespeople, you better not hike up the prices, because I'm going to tell everyone that they don't really need these beautiful Hadassim that are complete. They could even get away with ones that are clipped. Now the Gemara then said that Shmuel holds that you really don't need to have complete Hadassim. Even if they're clipped on the top, it's kosher. We spoke a little about it yesterday. We said Rashi's reason was because Reb Tarfon doesn't hold you need to have Hadar. Doesn't have to be beautiful. The Hadar goes on the Esrog, maybe on the Lulav, but not on the Hadassim. It doesn't say Hadar next to the Hadassim. Get away with Hadassim that are clipped. It's not Hadar, it's okay. It's still kosher. According to other commentaries, the concept is that the Hadassim are not so visible if they're clipped, because you have the leaves covering over the stem. Now, so what happened here is that Shmuel holds that the halacha is like Reb Tarfon, that you could have clipped ones. And then it says Shmuel went, according to his reasoning, Shmuel followed that logic, and he told because you see that he told the store owners, the salespeople, the peddlers, he told the Hadassim peddlers, he told them, you better not make the prices, because I'm going to make a big announcement that the halacha follows Reb Tarfon. You can get away with other types of Hadassim. They don't need your Hadassim. So the Gemara says, you see from there that he must hold like Reb Tarfon. Because if he doesn't hold like Reb Tarfon, he could have just made a threat, let him make a better threat. I'm not going to tell everyone that the halach is like I'm not even going to tell them the halach is like Reb Tarfon. I'll tell them the halach is like Rabbi Akiva. If he was just threatening, he could have made a better threat. He says, I'll tell him you only need one. You don't even need 3, just 1. So you see, it must be, the Gemara says, that he must hold like he must hold like Reb Tarfon, because otherwise he would have given a much better threat. He would have said it like Rabbi Akiva. The Gemara says not a proof. Could be from there you don't see that he holds like Reb Tarfon. I mean, he says before that he holds like Reb Tarfon, but from that story you don't see it. Why don't you see it from that story? Because from that story you could say that to find one good one, that Rabbi Akiva holds you need a good one. Reb Tarfon holds you need 3 bad ones. So it could be that it's much easier to find 3 bad ones than 1 good one. So in other words, the better threat was to say that the halachas like Reb Tarfon. Could be he doesn't really. They're not necessarily does he hold the halachas like Reb Tarfon. Could be that he holds a different halacha that you need all 3 good ones, but he was just threatening them in order to lower the prices. Now Tosfos says. Tosfos explains the Gemara the way I explained it, but then he says that he has a problem because there's a whole halacha regarding Pesach, and it basically boils down to when you have earthenware vessels that were used during the year, do you need to break them when Pesach comes because they're not going to be usable after Pesach or not? The reason they would not be usable after Pesach is because there's flavor that's in the walls of the earthenware vessels. That flavor is going to come out after Pesach. And if the flavor comes out into the food after Pesach, there is a way that it could ruin, that could make the food with a flavor that has chametz sha'avar olav Pesach. How would it be? If it's it would answer it if it's min b'mino, a certain technical rules, but it could be that it'll trafe up the it'll make a problem with eating the food there because you're going to be benefiting from this chametz sha'avar olav Pesach. You'll be benefiting from chametz that you didn't sell. You didn't sell your chametz. You'll be benefiting from it because there's a flavor inside the. You didn't sell this chametz that's inside the walls of the pot, and then it goes in. It's going to trafe up the food afterwards, and that would be a problem. And now the thing is that the other opinion is that it's not a problem. That you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about the flavor in the walls. You don't have to break your vessels. It's fine. However, you have your vessels. You don't have to break your vessels before Pesach because there's going to be a flavor in them, and then you're never going to be able to use them afterwards. So therefore, you should break them. No, it's not a problem. It's not an issue of chametz sha'avar olav Pesach, and you can get away. You can get away with keeping them. Now, the story there in the Gemara there is that it was a story where Shmuel threatened the store, the peddlers. What's the case? So he said, Shmuel told them, you people who sell kandi are these earthenware vessels, make sure ashvus binaychu. Sell your what you're selling should be for the value, because if not, I'm going to paskin to everyone that Shmuel. I'm going to paskin that the halacha follows Reb Shimon that says chametz after Pesach is no problem when it's not be'en, when it's not visible. Now, what did he do over there? Shmuel is of that opinion that it's mutter, that you don't have to break your vessels. Rav was of the opinion the pots have to be broken. Shmuel holds that you can use them after Pesach because this is not visible chametz and so on. And he holds like Reb Shimon that chametz that it's after Pesach, it's rabbinically forbidden. It's only rabbinical, and it's not going to prohibit other foods. It's not going to make a problem when you cook in that vessel. It's not visible, and so on. So the thing is that Shmuel is a very similar Gemara to our Gemara. there you have Shmuel threatening the peddlers of where you have Shmuel threatening the peddlers of the pots, and here Shmuel is threatening the peddlers of the hadassim. Some people ask, what's the job of a rabbi? Here you see a little, it's about to make sure the community doesn't have to, is not being harassed by the inflation, by the people who are gouging the prices, price gouging. This is what Shmuel did. He threatened these peddlers here. He threatens the peddlers over there in Psachim. You see, like that's one of the things. He has to care about his community. Yeah. Even if he has a good salary or he has wealth, independently wealthy, he's got to worry about the people in the community, and he may threaten them. So here Shmuel does the same thing. He says, if you're not going to tell them that, I'm gonna show everyone that I'm going to make an announcement that the halacha follows Reb Shimon. So Taisa says, so you see from there that that Shmuel doesn't make threats unless he really holds of it. So here also, according to the conclusion of the Gemara, you shouldn't be able to answer that. It must be that he holds of Reb Tarfon, because you don't make threats unless you really hold of this. So